What it is, y'all, it's your old boy Pilk, and we need to talk about episode 17 of Season 4 of Danmachi. This episode was really interesting, and I'm just going to kick this off with the very beginning of the episode being, like, super poignant for basically the whole thing. Essentially, what happened here is you had a big back and forth between Ryu and Kaguya, and Ryu had, like, a specific sense of justice, and Kaguya's like, it's not realistic, though obviously, you know, her delivery could have been significantly better, let's be real. Kaguya, so we've had her in the game before, the Danmachi Memory Feast, the mobile game that we also play in the channel. We've had her before in the game. I remember her being condescending, but I don't remember her just being an outright, you know what. She really, in the series, is coming across as, like, an unlikable, just monster. But she's not entirely wrong. Like, you know, the whole point was Ryu wants to save everybody, and she's like, you can't. At some point, you're gonna have to split the difference and prioritize certain people over others. It's just the way it goes. Like, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. And so, you know, once again, Kaguya's not wrong here. But her delivery, her people skills really kind of suck. But nevertheless, getting into the meat and potatoes of the episode, because this really will become important towards the end of the episode, a lot of this did revolve around Ryu and Belle. We have some great moments, just like character building between the two of them, because you never really see these two together. Like, they know of each other. But this is the first time we've had a lot of screen time with the two of them just interacting. And it's really, really, really interesting because you get to see the beginning here where Ryu is very green and very naive. And then you obviously see Belle, who's very naive. I won't say, he's still pretty green. He hasn't been around a huge amount of time. But Ryu's obviously been around years, and we're going to start seeing what happens to her familia and all that stuff. I mean, you can already kind of gauge the all the weapons are stabbed into the ground in a big mound. Yeah, everything's going to end happy. No. So, obviously, they keep running into these, I forget what they're called, but the big, like, werewolf-esque monsters in the dungeon. And she even uses a blaze stone at some point, and he uses his firebolt. And they're really, like, they use that to clear a path. They're really, really struggling. And she even talks to at some point, it's like, you know, 2 adventures down here on their own typically is just suicide. Like, it doesn't work out well. Normally, you'd have, like, 3 really strong adventures, or maybe just 4 adventures in general. This is not a good situation. This does not bode poorly for their survivability. But as they're going along, she begins to realize, okay, this monster over here, that's the one that probably poisoned those other people. This monster over here, that does the thing. You know, here's the ones you really got to look out for. The rest of them are just, you know, they're intelligent, but they're more nuisance monsters than anything else. But she's, you know, very clear, like, these are more intelligent and more evolved monsters in which you're normally used to dealing with. So, you know, the thing here is Belle has to pay attention. And she even mentions several times, she's like, you're getting too jumpy, you're too reactionary, you're not thinking. She's like, sometimes you get tense in battle, and, you know, basically gives him a big old pep talk. It's really neat. And you begin to actually see, like, a lot of self-doubt in her in a lot of ways. Because obviously she gives the potion over to Belle. Belle's the one leading the party. He's the one with the most stamina at this point. He's the one who's really going to be able to handle anything coming along the path. She's really more of a backup. And so she obviously gives him the moldy potion, which the whole time I'm like, if the potion works, isn't it just going to heal him? You know? And of course, like, even the nasties from the potion, like, yeah, it sucked, but he was healed. And the effects of drinking the mold and all that were instantly nullified, like, as one would kind of expect. And then what I thought was funny is that kind of neat little moment where she's like, okay, some of these slimes are really bad. That one, though, that one can be consumed safely. And so they render it down, put it in a thermos, and he takes the first swig. And then he's like, yeah, sorry, I put my lips all over your thermos. And she's like, that's kind of like a neat little like pause moment there where it's like, okay, I don't think it's like really she has a thing for him, but she's an elf. She's supposed to be very virtuous and whatnot. So, that would be seen as fairly taboo. So obviously she closes it up, puts it back in there. Obviously she has some feelings for him, but I don't quite think it's on that level. But I don't know. Maybe we'll see later on down the road. Who knows where that's going to lead? But nevertheless, she's sacrificing a lot. And even towards the end of this interaction between the two of them, she even begins to mention, she's like, only one of us is making it out, and my goal is to make sure it's him. There's no way that both of us are making it out. And of course, she lays up a plan. She's like, okay, the entrance to the lower levels here, the entrance to the upper, or the exit to the upper levels is here. This is where we need to go. And eventually they find what they call the ring cavern, where she's like, this specific wall is this color, and they're all slightly different, but I can tell this is number 1, or number 3, we need to get to number 1, that way it's number 5, so they're really able to just, like, finally they're making good headway back. Now, I did have a thought through all of this, and I'll kind of share it in a moment, because it only really becomes poignant towards the end of this episode, but what I really enjoyed most of all about this was the fact we actually got to see the search party, Tsubaki's led search party with Anya, Chloe, and Lunar actually in action. The thing I thought was funny is you see Chloe and Anya and Tsubaki taking a monster to the best of their ability, and Lunar's just like, punch, punch, punch. Just bare fist. Well, it's not bare fisting because she's wearing a glove, but I mean, like, still, as close to bare knuckle, just thwacking opponents, which I thought was super cool. I'm like, man, she is such a badass. I love it so much. But you get to see more of them, and they start to have an interaction. And they even mentioned a little bit about, the monsters are more active, and there's more dangerous monsters. And even Chloe gets a bad premonition about there are things here that don't need to be here. We're really staring at an extremely dangerous situation. And, Chloe is a character shouldn't be taken lightly in this situation. She's not, like, Anya's very goofy. Chloe kind of plays the, dare I say, the straight man role, but you know what I mean. Like, she genuinely is like the offset to Anya's ridiculousness. But in this situation, take her at face value. This is a bad situation. And we find out later on that, yes, in fact, it is a pretty terrible situation. Because when we meet back up with the rest of the Hestia Familia and their whole party, they're meeting up with monsters. Boars basically is starting to chicken out. And everybody's pretty much forcing him along with the party. You start to really get more interaction with everybody there. And they're beginning to realize, like, the monsters are not letting up. This is really getting intense. And at some point, they're like, Boris, you need to take us to where you last saw Belle. They come across the whole party. It's been annihilated by Juggernaut. And they're like, we need to go where you last saw Belle. We need to see this. And of course, they get into the cavern. They see that big hole where, I can't remember what it is, but that big, like, snake-looking thing that bored him down into the deep floors. He's like, this is where I left him. And they see the hole and they're like, this is bad. That probably goes way down. Who knows what could come out of this? And right about that moment, they're attacked. And these are some monsters that really don't seem to be here. They really don't belong here. And there's tons and tons and tons of them. But the biggest takeaway, I think, here, well, second biggest takeaway here. Second biggest takeaway is Wes' weapon. People begin to realize, they start to look at here and go, that weapon should have disintegrated long ago. And Welf even uses up his stamina. Now remember, usually weapons like this have a lot of magic imbued into them. You still have to have magic power to use it, but the magic usually comes from the weapon, less, the user. In this situation, it's very clearly the other way around. Someone even mentioned it in last week's episode. I think they mentioned it prematurely. I'm pretty sure they're going to lay it out for you if you haven't figured it out at this point. But the weapon is actually utilizing the user's innate magic ability, less its own magic ability. And that's what makes it so durable. So it's literally an everlasting magic weapon that's more of like a tuning fork for your inherent magic power. So really interesting weapon. And at the end of the day, they're overwhelmed and they look back and there's just a fleet of monsters coming down the hallway. And this is that moment where I was like, I was waiting for this to happen. Because even with Belle and Ryu down in the lower levels, I'm like, thinking about it, and I was like, man, where are the Xenos when you need them, right? And that's when they come out of the shadows. And you realize Oka, Chigusa, they have no idea. Like half of the party doesn't know anything about the Xenos, and I don't even think Aisha knows. I'm trying to remember if Aisha actually was privy to that. I think she actually was, more I think about it. But nevertheless, they take them by surprise, and half the party turns around and goes, "That's bad," and then they start taking out the other monsters, and they're like, "What's going on here?" And even Lily's like, "The Xenos have arrived," and that's pretty much where the episode ends. I was waiting for that to happen. I was waiting for Belle and Ryu to run into some Xenos that they knew in the lower levels, like Lead or somebody like that down there. I was really waiting for that to kind of be their saving grace. Because the more I was going into this episode, I was thinking, I'm like, they're running across a ton of monsters. How long is it before they run across the Xenos? And obviously, Belle being friendly with the Xenos in general is a thing. And obviously, even the Xenos mentioned, they're like, Fel sent us. We're here to help. And so it's going to be a really, really interesting interaction now between them and the members of the party that have no clue what's going on. So I really can't wait to see how that goes down. So while this episode wasn't insanely pivotal, as far as huge amount of actions go, I think this was a really important episode, and it's going to lead us to our final conclusion, which is, I say coming up, but we still got a ways to go here. The other search party has to meet up with the rest of the Hestia and their fam. Belle and Ryu have to find a way out. So, we've got a ways to go, but still, really exciting. Can't wait for the next episode. Can't wait to see how the Xenos reveal goes down with the rest of the group that doesn't have any clue. I'm really excited. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Like, comment, share, and I'm going to catch you guys on the next one.